Should I go a little higher? I think I should go about
A little bit higher.
Oh crap! I need my
right there.
thirds.
That's good.
A little
That's
bit right
good.
there. Okay, good.
And I'm okay.
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, great.
You
Sound
sound
fabulous.
great.
You sound like
Fab.
Caribbean jerk chicken.
Michelle, maybe you actually need to turn yourself up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, Michelle, can you turn yourself up
I can.
and make sure you don't
gonna go-
pop?
Oh,
Say pop,
dear.
pop, pop,
pop,
pop,
like a
pop, 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 pop.
There you go.
No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're not popping. We're good.
Pop it
All
like
right.
it's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When a bitch
You know
gets an
how to
attitude,
turn me
pop it
on,
like it's
Mr.
hot.
Smithers.
Pop it like it's hot. Pop it like it's hot.
Like it's
Pop
hot.
it like it's hot.
I'm gonna pop some mics, gonna ruin all our audio track.
I want just one up.
Oh, that's gonna be a new intro song.
Oh wait, so we are live.
Oh, apparently we are live. Someone turned on the button, and I had no idea. Why do we even do this? Hello and good morning. Hi, welcome to the Sunday show. The Speaker's
also
Corner.
known. Yeah.
Speaker's Corner, there it is. So, welcome to all of our guests, all of our viewers, and Frank's crazy hair. So, just wanted to say good morning, and we've got a lot of great things on docket here for you. We filled up the entire docket in about 30 seconds. Was it about 30 seconds?
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
quick.
it was pretty quick. So we've got lots to talk about this week. We'll go through this stack of stuff and impart knowledge that you wouldn't have otherwise. So let's go ahead and go through the cast of characters. Cast of characters includes Frank Heathington right now in Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Say hello, Frank.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning to you. And also in Gainesville, Florida, Michelle Lynch, who is listening to her earpieces quite heavily at the moment.
Indeed, you sound good. Sound frank, but Jeff, you might need to bring it down a little bit.
Oh, bring down, am I a little too loud?
Don't tell him to bring it down a little bit. That's the
Bring it
Yeah,
down.
never tone it down.
Bring
Never
it-
tone it
bring-
down.
Don't tone it down. So, don't tone it down. Is that not a good song? And our last and most illustrious guest, co-host or key player,
Yes.
I don't know, Tom Holm in Queens,
VIP.
New York.
the point guard.
I'm more of like a midfielder. I think I gotta imagine that.
You run around all over the place?
Frank is obviously one of our strikers.
Obviously.
I'm in right field.
With the glove on your head?
You're definitely in
think-
right field for your obligatory inning and a half. And Jeff is our keeper, making sure that we don't own goal ourselves.
As may happen.
You are so in right field.
Oh,
Here's your trophy for participation, Michelle.
Thank you.
You get this year's trophy, and next year we expect you to sign up, so we're going to go ahead and give you next year's trophy as well.
You get most improved because in the first game you killed 2 players in the first game, and in the last game you only killed 1, and that's an improvement.
That is...
So I heard something crazy about soccer this week that someone drove me crazy about.
Yes.
One, who was it?
Oh, pray tell.
It was Ann Coulter, and this is a little off topic, but Ann Coulter said the reason why soccer is becoming so popular in America is because the recent immigrant population of the United States and the lack of firm fiscal policy on that. And I said to myself, really? Really? You mean to tell me all the Latino people that are coming into this country are making the World Cup bigger than the Super Bowl, essentially, at this point? I don't know. Have you guys seen any of the games that have gone on? I'm actually into the soccer fever right now. How about you guys?
Well, this is
All
a
right.
lovely segue into something I thought we were going to talk about
Later.
about the second third of the show, but we've moved it up.
Let's...
So, Michelle, is there something you'd like to say with regards to World Cup and culture?
Well, I cannot stand Ann Coulter, and the fact that she has said anything about our national whatever has decreased because we are now liking soccer more.
Our national what has decreased? Our national identity? Because now we like an international sport, and we're no longer
less
the outlier.
American. We're less. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
and then whenever we
yes.
take on the metric system, we're also going to be less American?
She might jump off a cliff.
Right, because we
wait.
drive cars with turbo diesel engines, and they're going to completely get all pissed off because we're starting to be European?
Yes.
Because we do something that's rational and legitimate?
Not even rational. It's a flippin' game.
So, for the viewers at home who may not know exactly what we're talking about, Ann Coulter, who is a best-selling conservative columnist, writer,
Can we just go with selling and not best-selling?
No, she's a best-selling.
No, she's best-selling.
Bestseller.
She wrote a exceptionally inflammatory column about the World Cup, which got a lot of people unnerved, angry, upset, and which will lead me in which Michelle being one, who's I think she's pointing to herself. Is that what you're doing? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Where I have to stop. I've had this conversation a few times this week, and this is where I'll say this is things that piss Tom off that shouldn't piss him off, and really it's the people who let Ann Coulter push their button, because here's the thing. She knows exactly what she's doing.
That's right.
Ann Coulter, I fully believe, does not believe half the stuff she writes. But she knows if she writes what she says, as she does, she will, for push books, push television appearances, B, push buttons of people on the left. And it's a win-win for her. She's like, you're not going to buy my book, but the more pissed off you are, the more people who might be in my base or who are going to buy my book and be like, yeah, she's sticking it to them. She knows exactly. So that's why I only got about a third of the way into reading her article, and I'll admit I laughed because it was so over the board. Like she was approaching self-parodying levels of the way she talked about things.
I'm feeding into her essentially by.
Unfortunately, that's why.
Kind of like the Miley Cyrus of the political spectrum.
Yeah.
So essentially, I should be saying Ann Coulter who?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No, just call her Miley Cyrus. You're good.
Miley Cyrus.
Why is it that when Miley Cyrus licks a hammer, people call it artistic and invoking?
And when I do it, I get told to leave the playground at the elementary school.
You mean
Whatever.
the Home Depot? The Home Depot. They tell me to please leave the Home Depot immediately.
And the hammer never wins the race.
Location.
Wow, that was a good setup.
Awesome.
So yeah, don't let the don't let Ann get to you, because that's exactly what she wants.
Yeah, I'm not going to let Ann get what she wants.
That's why there's part of me that I have to admire, because she's so good at it. She's better than any of them. This is where Glenn Beck says insane things, but I firmly believe he just believes what he's saying. Wholeheartedly. I think
you're right on that.
He's no longer that. Or he either never was, or he's no longer that clever needler. Limbaugh too used to be really good at it, but I think he's kind of lost his talent for doing it. He's lost his talent for kind of pushing the buttons, because no one's really listening. He doesn't have. I don't believe the
only people who listen to Limbaugh anymore are ditto heads.
Yeah, he's not. Unlike Ann Coulter, he's not appearing on Bill Maher. He's not getting picked up by Huffington Post in his editorials.
He's just cashing in on the cash cow that he's created for himself. The advertisers will just keep paying him money for him to just keep his show going, so that people will still listen to it.
He did make news a little while ago, but not for anything major. Not for Not for any, maybe some pills. That was a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so go on to the next one. So you said Ann Coulter was saying we were less Americans. Do Americans speak American?
Yeah. So this week I have been selected as a census family. And I've got a brochure that has come into the mail. And this, I assume, goes to all the, I've got to think, states and territories.
Right?
Ooh,
right?
And just so for international viewers in Albania, the census is something that occurs every 10 years in the United States to decide our political structure. So
just like in the Bible when they had everybody go back to Galilee or whatever town they had to go to.
Yes.
In order to be counted to appropriately be taxed.
So what are some of the questions they ask you, Michelle? I'm curious about this.
Okay, so I haven't gotten to that part yet. So the actual survey is, you can do it online. which I'm actually going to congratulate them. They give you a letter where you can go online, and I actually should probably do that because I have to.
Is the website
some special
broken?
things on there.
Yeah.
The website is not broken, correct?
The website is not broken that I know of. But what is genius is that they're going to have you go to the website first so that they don't have to keep trying to send out mailers to people that haven't responded. So I thought that was really smart of them. Some weird things that I found are they are really connected to social media.
Oh, that's cute. The government still uses QR codes.
QR codes are awesome. Shut your front door.
In the right place and time. So my question to you guys is, this particular guy has, I think, 6 panels that are available, which means that you have 6 languages, one of which being English. Or American. What do you think the other 5 are?
Portuguese.
Well, I think we can not really go out on a limb, but step onto the tree and say Spanish.
Yes. Should be a safe bet. Are we correct in Spanish?
Correct.
Okay. So
now I was told that I only had I tried to seriously answer this during the week, and Michelle informed me that I only had 2. So I'm going to assume a Mandarin is not on the list.
Ooh, that is probably possibly
Mandarin as a form of Chinese.
Yes, I don't know, but they're like
you probably can't tell the difference between Chinese and Chinese.
No, I like yes,
Cantonese and Mandarin and
I can tell sometimes if I'm looking at high Japanese, if I'm looking at low, if I'm
Korean.
looking at I can tell there's some differences. Some form of a Chinese Mandarin is on there. Correct. That is number 3. So yes, you got 3 right. Correct.
What about Elvis?
Elvish was not on there.
That was not on there.
I went for Zulu, and I think that I was wrong in that.
And can you give me some understanding as to why you chose Chinese?
Why I chose? Well, I totally went. I'll tell you the ones that I chose. Viewing public, I totally went on trying to think of large and significant immigrant populations.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So I went obviously with Spanish. That's why I didn't do French. I said Haitian French.
Creole.
I went with. I also went with. I think I went with Russian, Mandarin, Hindi, and I can't remember what I did for my 6. Maybe that is 6. Spanish, Haitian French, Russian, Mandarin,
Hindi,
English. And I don't know what I did for English. Yeah, thank you.
So in that case, you did get 4.
I got 4.
Yes.
Let me guess. The one I missed was not Russian. It was Arabic.
Incorrect. It was Russian.
It was Russian.
Yes.
It wasn't Hindi.
Correct. So you've gotten so far English, Spanish, some Mandarin, Russian. We have 2 others left.
And there's nothing Indian. There's nothing like Hindi or Urdu or something from India.
Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, depending on if we're using the where our immigration comes from and where our territories are, no.
So is there something for Eskimo?
No.
Hebrew?
Where are our territories? Where have our
Filipino
major bases
the
been?
Philippines?
Where have our major
We
bases?
have a base in Germany. We have a base in Okinawa. We have American Samoa, Guam.
Okay, none of these
Puerto
make sense to
Rico.
me then as to why these 2 are the other 2.
What are the remainders?
The remainders are Vietnamese
Oh, huge!
wow.
and Korean.
Korean, there's a lot of people that speak Korean and never move out of that environment. And really, I think that's really what you're looking for, is the folks that are in their own little...
there was a...
So the person that's designing this, who are they? Yeah, like, who is it?
I wish I can find the map for you, but there was a great infographic, and I can't remember who put it out, but it was showing you by each state, accepting the fact that English would be
English
the most
and
common language in
Spanish,
each
right.
Spanish, and then like what was the third? If you remember, in California,
French.
Vietnamese
Mm-hmm.
was
Right.
the third most common, and so that
yeah.
totally makes sense. Like we're also
Okay.
forgetting because we're
they're
East
going to come
Coasters, we don't.
across from that side. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that there's a lot. There's a lot larger Asian population on coastal California. That
Well,
that
I
totally
thought
makes sense.
Japanese would make that
There's
because
not
I know
that-
that.
It's not that many people.
Most Japanese immigration probably took place in the early part of the 20th century. They're not necessarily continuous.
Yep. Pre-World War II.
And then the other piece of that was the representing all the different alphabets possibly was my thought. So yeah, I was surprised there was no Arabic or anything, but that's also not the goal. The goal is to reach the people that cannot speak English best, and the most people that would not be able to translate another Romance language, which Spanish would have given them, are
Right.
these other languages that don't have these
Right.
similar.
Cyrillic with the Russian, it's not similar really to too much. The Chinese
Cyrillic.
is not
Cyrillic.
Cyrillic.
Acrylic is what you
Okay.
do with your nails.
I said Cyrillic. Oh, I didn't give it an
Cyrillic.
Cyrillic. Saint Cyrus.
Cyrillic. Cyrus.
Yes. So yeah, I thought that was fascinating.
Thank you.
that,
Very interesting.
Yeah. And other
That is.
news. In other news, do we have a
Please.
national language?
No, well, officially
Southern?
no.
Correct. Officially, no. Do states have state languages?
Some.
They do.
Alabama has a state language of English.
That is correct. Florida has a state language of English, and these state languages seem to have come around. And I don't know the actual full story, so if anybody out does, please feel free to comment. They seem to have come around 1923 when some states wanted to enact, for some reason, I don't know why, languages that they speak American and not English. So for some states, they spoke American in 1923 until like 1970 something.
They
And
called
then-
it American.
They called it American.
Interesting.
So is it only
Oh.
southern states that have classified their languages as southern or American? I mean,
It is not surprising that yes, the states that do have a state language are more conservative states, and the states that do not, New York does not, and some of the other more liberal states do not. And they've made
Gotcha.
point, or they there's another one that's like the English and then some, I think it's called, or something like that. That they've made a point of, we're not just English, we're everything. So there's like this whole movement happening back there that it was fascinating to find out.
It doesn't surprise me the time frame because if I remember the 1920s, we saw another resurgence both on the legislative level, but also on kind of the populist level of anti-immigrant sentiment.
Yep.
So you saw America start.
yes.
America went post World War I, went into a more isolationist period.
Because everyone's feeling good, though.
No, but they're feeling like
No.
we're on top of the world and we need to squash everybody else. That was in the era when the robber barons and all these people would go out there and just the J.P. Morgans of the world were just.
This is post. The 20s would be post.
Well, in the
for Robert
20s though,
Barnes.
but isn't that the J.P. Morgan era when the American economy style was winning across the world?
yeah,
and
that's-
the borrow
Roaring.
and build was the thing to do.
Industry.
Right. Well, but they say industry, but really it was borrow and build and make profit on the borrowed money and not make profit on what you actually owned. You borrowed a bunch of money and then built on it, and that's how lots of that wealth was
That's
created.
the American way.
Right. So in any case, that then created this sentiment that the rest of the world didn't know how to do it as well as we knew how to do it, and that it created this American exceptionalism. And at the moment of American exceptionalism, then it made people want to have this concept of a truly American language.
AP
My
history
guess.
students, are you listening out there? Right here. We're offering up some really good essays.
I'm telling you, Tom,
Just-
is that when American
just-
exceptionalism started? Am I wrong on that, or am I right?
I think it predates that, to be honest. I think it actually.
It's
you
part
start-
of the
was it-
lineage of.
But was it like it felt like it kind of promulgated during that area, and it kind of became the prominent concept in the American psyche.
I might the feeling of needing to exert that and have it recognized in the world. You could go back to the really first, or one of the shining examples under Teddy Roosevelt, the Great White Fleet, where in the very beginning of the 20th century, literally had these painted brightly ships sailing to kind of show American power and presence on a global scale. Really kind of not firing shots, but just kind of as a show of force, cruising,
just kind of driving around, showing off our bling.
Precisely.
It was
it's an
those
extension
big
of
rims.
Manifest Destiny, right?
They say me steaming. They hate me. Look at my ships a steaming. Look at me, my ships a steaming. Look at me, my ships a steaming. We're steaming Great White Fleet.
Carry a big stick, but speak softly.
I think it was the other way around. Speak softly, but carry a big stick. Frank, how come when you speak, you look away right after you talk?
Because I think it's time for the random country of the day.
Oh!
Way to stay in line and keep things rolling. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to kind of flip it up a little bit this week because I'm going to drop a hint for you guys. This country doesn't exist currently, but it was very...
Narnia.
No, it was
Constantinople.
No.
Istanbul was Constantinople. Constantinople get the works. That's nobody's business but the Turks.
I wanted to tie in kind of something historical that happened this week.
Wait, okay.
But Tom already knows.
Marrakesh.
Tom, hold on.
There's a hyphen in it.
Okay, well, the random country of the day is Yugoslavia.
Yugoslavia doesn't exist?
No.
Not in its current form.
It did, but it did at one point, did it not?
Yes.
And I saw it on a globe.
You did see it on the globe at one point. That is correct.
I saw it.
I thought you were going to go with Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Which is kind of interesting because if you think about what's going on in Iraq right now, how the lines were written up right after the Ottomans, who basically sided with the Germans in World War I. Iraq was basically carved out, or the whole Levant in itself, which is the Levant being the Middle East, comprising of Lebanon, Syria, Israel, different factions of Iraq, which had a Sunni enclave, which is basically like their own state, and a Shia enclave, and the Kurds, that basically their freedom basically goes between Iraq and Iran now. So after World War I, those lines are already were written down by those victors of the spoils, which primarily was the British. So that is what we're kind of seeing in Yugoslavia. What happened in Yugoslavia in the early '90s, right after this USSR dissolved. We're seeing it in Iraq right now. So there you go. Random country today is Yugoslavia.
And the lovely verb that comes from that is balkanizing or balkanization, which is referred to the fracturization state, ethnic lines or communal lines.
Live long and prosper.
Yes, Dr. Spock. Balkan.
So there you go.
Balkan with a
not
B,
vulcanization.
not V.
No.
Which actually, vulcanization is a treatment of metal.
That is
Yes.
correct.
In shipbuilding and other properties. So vulcanization is also a verb. This is balkanization.
Both of which are valuable
Yugoslavia.
verbs.
There you go. And go Croatia. I think they're not in the World Cup.
Speaking of valuable resources, let's speak about the Odesk opportunity here.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of the Balkans and other such city-states, I had the opportunity twice in the past couple of weeks to use the software platform, and there's a few other kind of like varieties, but I used Odesk, lowercase o, capital D, Odesk, and really what it was is kind of like it's an online, I guess it acts kind of almost like an escrow to like connect people who need freelancers and freelancers who need work, and so and most of it has to do with programming. If you need coders, if you need someone who has a software language experience. and you have need for either small scale work or even large scale work, you can basically pitch a job, have people apply for the position, have a conversation with those potential candidates, and then hire them either on a session rate or an hourly rate. And I've used it twice in the past week, and it's been a boon for me. It's been really great. I twice had an issue that I could not solve, and I knew even if I could figure out how to code it right, it would probably take me a couple of days, whereas I knew I could outsource it to someone elsewhere. They would more than likely for not that much money be able to bang out.
Yep.
Is there a
the issue.
possibility, this may not be popular, is there a possibility to determine, choose somebody in the United States as opposed to abroad?
I mean, when you
I
conversate
assume
with
you
these
could
folks,
find. I'm sure you could find freelancers. I mean,
is
don't
it in the list of things that you can choose when you're, or are they responding to?
I don't know if you can filter based on
Okay.
on country of origin. I mean, it tells you where people are from, because obviously you need to know their time difference and where they are.
Right.
But for neo-nationalists like Michelle, you would probably have to
Watch it now.
I kid. But no, it also felt good. I obviously didn't. My first 2 times doing it, I didn't lowball because I didn't want to get screwed over. I didn't want to have a bad taste in my mouth the first time I used it. So I knew it. So I was like, for a significant issue, or not an issue that I knew could probably be fixed in a few hours, I said, let me just put $50. Straight up, not an hourly fee. Just the quicker you can do this, the quicker you get $50. And sure enough, the first guy was a VJ guy in India. Was like, hey man, and this is literally how he was writing me. Hey man, no problem. I can totally do this. And I even Skyped with him for a bit, not on non-visual camera, but just like chatting after the project was done. And yeah, so $50, he fixed an issue that seriously I had spent on and off again, probably like half a day, trying to figure out, if not more than that.
Dang.
So
that's a $50 well spent.
$50 well spent. To just I just need it done and out and move on.
And did you have to give him access to any of your resources or anything?
I did have to give him access, but obviously I only gave him access to those. Like I set him up with an FTP only specifically to those folders that I knew he would have to be working in. So yeah, but the
that
cache
is a calculated risk.
Yep,
it's a calculated risk, but it's also you hire someone off the street.
Correct.
It's the same thing.
Correct.
The thing with these guys is you can also see how many hours they've worked through Odesk, how many contracts they've done. Also via Yelp style, you can see reviews from other users.
Nice.
They also can review you. So also conversely, they can review you as a client to be like, okay, because he reviewed me as like Tom's a great guy. It was quick with the answers. So it kind of goes
obviously
both ways.
Tom's a great guy. I mean, we wouldn't be here if Tom
so
wasn't a great
I also
guy.
looked for intentionally for the candidate who hadn't worked only 20 hours, but someone who in the past 6 months had worked 600 plus hours, because I wanted someone who's obviously getting contracts, doing work, and has an investment in not
screwing everybody over
around.
Yep.
Indeed.
So a positive experience. And also I want to say, I know people are concerned about outsourcing and all that, and I know maybe I'm contributing to that system, but really I feel it's a global economy.
Yep. It is. And really, if you don't play in the big kid pool, then you're just not going to get the same kind of benefits as the guys who do.
And I did not go in with the idea of an exploiter. I went in with the idea of I want someone who's going to quickly turn around. Also, the second problem I had, it was night, and before I go to bed I was talking to Masood in Bangladesh, who it was 9 in the morning for him, and so he's like, all right, cool. And so I woke up in the morning and my issue was fixed and ready to go. I'm like, sweet.
And for him it was probably as easy as it gets.
Exactly.
To make $50.
Boom, push payment, he's got his money.
Yep. How did they deal with the payment on that guy?
The website works almost like an escrow. It basically, okay, you've agreed to this price, okay, and then once the contract is finished, you then go in and say, I'm closing out this contract, and they still give you an option. Do you want to pay the full price? Do you want to pay something different? You're like, no, I'm paying. Do you want to pay extra? And so I was like, so you sign off on what you want.
So you pay the house pays the person.
And they actually tell you what the house is cost. They actually up front tell you. So of the last guy, he underbid. The I guess to get more attention, I had posted for a $50 project. He had posted he'd do it for $40, and I think of that he got $36.90.
Wow.
So even the house's cut is not. What is that? That's probably.
And so you didn't even have to pay 50?
I guess that is like about 10%.
That's significant, yeah.
You didn't even have to
10%.
pay 50? You just paid 40 for it?
I paid 40. He got, of which he got
Wow.
$36.90.
10% with no overhead and no stock or anything else is a...
Well, no, they have to hold the money, and they have to be the answer. They have to answer all the phone calls when you're being a pain in the butt, and blah
And the
blah
site's
blah.
acting as, and actually the site.
I don't know if they
I
have to
recommend.
hold the money.
They
can
have
just
to do
hold
all the transaction cost. They have to do all the transaction costs.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm
Right.
using my credit card.
He
to-
used a
Yeah.
credit card, which chewed
You're
up
correct.
3%, and
So they're covering that as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
Well,
I totally suggest, at the very least, dabbling in it to see where it could
Yeah.
potentially work for you. Am I
Yeah.
going to use it? Am I going to use it day in, day out? No, because there is at some point a certain advantage of having a programmer in the room with you, or even someone who has comes from. Forgive me for now sounding nationalist. Someone who comes from the exact same culture as
Right.
you.
And thinks
'cause
the
then-
same way that you do, and has common experiences. And all
because
these
then you
kinds
don't
of
have to worry
things.
about idiomatic language
Right.
getting lost.
Okay, I have a
on something.
question. I have a question about idiomatic language then.
Because it's hard
Go.
enough to sorry, Frank, for a second. Because it's hard enough to talk to an American programmer and have them understand you sometimes, because they're programmers and they are quite possibly the most literal effing people.
So,
I
So
love
then
my
you double that by
programmers.
having it be a separate language, and then
So
So,
you
Chris.
want it to do what now?
oh, you wanted a door. Oh, Frank,
I thought
Frankie
that
baby.
went without saying.
so my question is, I got to move on to the next topic, but I don't
Sure.
have any. I have nothing. I don't know. I'm going to express my ignorance on this topic for this show today. What is the Supreme cell phone decision this week? The Supreme Court of the United States made some kind of decision this week, and I honestly don't know anything about it.
Effectively, the Supreme Court said when you want to know somebody's calls or call records, you want to be involved in this, get a warrant. They basically went, you can't do this without a warrant.
It's
except
more than that.
Go ahead.
I think it's more than that. What had happened, it's specifically it's not call and call records. It's actually literally the contents of your mobile phone.
Correct.
The police had argued that the mobile phone was the equivalent of, like, you've arrested someone and you're searching their wallet, for identification or something, which I guess police are allowed to do on some level for identification purposes. So the case was, I guess there was two people who had, part of a case arguing that, they were convicted based on the contents of their mobile phone, which was searched without a warrant. And so in a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court said, no, you in fact have to receive a warrant to search the contents of their phone, because the phone is no longer just that it is a camera, it is a diary, it is all this intimate. This is actually Justice Roberts, because he wrote
Unanimous
the decision for the
decision?
majority.
Yeah.
It was an unanimous decision.
Wow.
I think there might have been a few. I think it was 6-0, so there might have been a few who had
abstained.
recused themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was, or the 6. I take it back. It might have been a unanimous decision. The next court case we're going to talk about was 6-3, but it was a unanimous decision, which is surprising because people have said this, especially this Supreme Court, has tended to be very positive to police power. But
Yeah.
to see them unanimously decide in the favor of civil liberties
Yeah,
and
but that's-
individual freedom.
I think it's quite just because of how
Oh, no,
much
I
stuff
agree.
is on our phones. It's more intimate than if somebody went into your house when you weren't there, right? If somebody just went in and wasn't able to tear open everything, but was able to just kind of look around your house, you'd get more information by perusing somebody's phone for 30 minutes than you would by perusing their house for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I
No.
also expect a certain degree of privacy.
I have the
Yeah.
expectation of privacy. Yep.
Yeah.
And,
And it's-
what does that
it's-
do for somebody who they used to require you to be able to give the access to the cops if they wanted your password? You'd have to give it to them,
Correct.
which I think is dumb.
Correct. Ooh, but is this gonna then? Would this extend to your employer? Because your employer theoretically could ask for your passwords and whatnot, and see your phone as well.
I think it comes down to the classic laws is this to protect us from. I guess when you enter into a contract with an agency, you are upfront possibly agreeing to, especially if you're using company material, company property. Jeff and I had this conversation about, if it's company property, you assume no individual rights. If you're using a company computer or company phone, you can't then, say, but I have some right to individual freedom. It's like, no, you're using our stuff, and it behooves the company. An ethical company makes it crystal clear that that's the policy. But even if they don't, it's implied that this is company, or should be implied that this is company material.
Right.
Yeah, especially if they're sort of providing the phone.
Right.
Yeah, it's them providing the phone, them providing the service, and really, I feel the burden is on a responsible employer to state outwardly, "Hey, we are giving you this phone. We reserve the right when the defecation hits the oscillator to be able to peruse this at our will." Right?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And if you say
police
that,
officers.
But
No.
police officers, well, but they have the guns, right? You can tell your employer, "I'm going to wipe this, give it back to you. I don't want to be a part of that." You can't tell the cops, "Oh, I don't want to be a part of this." But you can tell your employer, "I'd rather just have my own phone that you don't have access to."
Good point. Yeah.
So that covers that topic. Speaking on the
They were
Supremes,
busy, though.
there was another court case.
They always like to hang on a bang. They always like to close out on a bang.
Yeah. And the other Supreme Court case had to do with Aereo, which is a small New York City startup, if I remember right.
You're correct, yes.
That basically created very, very small antennas with a little chip that was able to pick up over-the-air broadcasts, then was able to transcode those into a format that's easily transmittable across the internet. Aereo then was able to provide as a service to users all of those over-the-air broadcasts at any time that someone would want from these tiny antennas. And the concept that they went on is it's over-the-air broadcast, so therefore we can pick that up and provide a rented over-the-air broadcast antenna to anybody that we want in that broadcast area. And so then that allowed them to basically sell a $7 a month service for people to have over-the-air broadcast, DVR'd effectively, for their perusing at whatever leisure they wanted, which was a brilliant thing. The only problem was not very many people have been using over-the-air over the last 5-10 years. They mostly buy cable. And this was a cord-cutting concept on how people could then get good quality over-the-air broadcast provided them at any time that they wanted without having to pay the cable company what is effectively $25-30 a month for that same content. And the broadcast channels were getting a kickback from the cable companies on being able to carry their content. So it decreased the revenue to NBC, CBS, and Comcast Time Warner, and so all of those parties got involved and ensured that there was a very strong case brought to the Supremes, and the Supremes sided with the cable companies.
Michelle,
Coloring
biting
this.
at
You
the
are
bit.
coloring this, really.
Well, then color the other direction. I
Okay.
will play the arbitrator and decide. Frank and I would play arbitrator and decide who is right.
Okay, so the broadcast, they have to make money somehow. They make money by redistributing. They redistribute.
That wasn't their original business model. They did not get free public airwaves based on the concept that they were going to have a revenue model of distribution. They got free public airwaves based on the profit model of they would only sell advertising. That's how they got to be able to broadcast over the air without having to pay the government monies in the 50s, 60s era.
They did pay partially in the government for the funding to build the lines, to make the infrastructure.
No, I'm not talking about cable. I'm talking about the broadcasters, CBS, NBC, ABC.
So what was your complaint? What was your thought on them?
They're the ones who are the most pissed off because they're losing the revenue that the cable companies were giving to ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Because these are the open. These are not like free though. They pay
They're, well, for the consumer, they are technically free. Like I get
they're
everything.
but they're not free for the broadcaster. They have to have a license, and that license costs money. And
which they get from advertisement.
Yeah, they get for advertisement.
They do get from advertisement, yes, and they get, but it costs a lot of money to create all of these shows, and that advertisement dollars is not going to cover all of that. So what they do is they make more money in rebroadcasting, and they sell the rights to rebroadcast their things. So if you're taking their rebroadcasted item and you are creating essentially your own little broadcasting unit, and you're collecting them and then rebroadcasting out without giving any money back.
It's not, but that's the thing is they were not rebroadcasting. They were channeled to, they were an avenue for watching what is currently being broadcasted.
Correct.
No, that's the same thing.
No. Rebroadcasting means that you take it and then you re-provide that in another service. The idea of
can
Aereo,
be live. It can be the same at the same moment. You can broadcast. If I'm getting, Chicago can send their signal, based, and they're going to pay whoever to hit it off of their tower, whoever to hit it off of their tower, whoever to hit it off of their tower, to eventually get down to Atlanta for some strange, crazy reason. It's possible, and it's at that same moment that it's happening. It's not necessarily that it's something that happened previously, and
there's no Chicago to Atlanta bounce with Aereo. Aereo really, obviously you can dig around with IP, so there's a little bit connected, but I couldn't, if Aereo's in Atlanta and in New York, I can only watch the Aereo New York over-the-air channels.
Correct.
The idea being I'm sitting in New York, and I can either turn on the television and watch it over my antenna, or I can watch it through my laptop on the same antenna, or the antenna that Aereos are providing me in their warehouse, what have you.
That's right.
And how would you? So you're avoiding. You're
avoiding the rebroadcast because it's only in the area where you theoretically could get. If you had a powerful enough antenna, you could receive that broadcast over the air. So all they were doing was digitizing what you could already get from analog or digital over-the-air broadcasts. Is that accurate, Tom?
Yes.
And acting as a middleman.
And they were only asking
the data.
No. They were obscuring the data.
Yes, because that's what they sell the advertisements for. So if we don't know who is watching, if Aereo is in the middle, and you don't know who that's going out to anymore.
Yeah, but you don't know that on broadcast. You don't know that on broadcast.
They don't know who it's going to.
Yeah, they just send it out into the air, and whoever picks it up is who picks it up. It's like setting up a PA in the middle of a park and playing music. Do you know exactly who it is that was in there listening to your music? No, you have no idea. You didn't sell them tickets.
No. I understand that, but Aereo is not part of the exchange system.
Exchange system.
So like they don't buy into the Nielsen ratings and all because that
But how did Nielsen get over the air? How did they get over the air?
Wait. There's no Nielsen rating for, and how'd they get over the air? What do you mean? How did they get over the air?
How would Nielsen get ratings for stuff that came over the air?
And by boxes and
there's no boxes over the
diaries.
Diaries is implying that I become like a Nielsen. I'm part of the Nielsen Family Network, and I'm writing down what I watch. Right?
Correct.
So that would work the same way. Aereo, yeah.
It would work exactly the same way.
Okay.
No doubts.
Okay.
Now where Aereo did kind of, I think really, the one thing that I will admit, kind of like oops, was the DVR capacity is where they may have shot themselves in the foot because Aereo not only allowed you to watch with a slight delay because of the the pipe being down. Yep. What would be over-the-air live television, it also allowed you to DVR, and I think that probably fell into that, okay, now you are
rebroadcasting,
allowing for the rebroadcasting.
But that's really the strength of what they were selling, isn't it?
Oh, no, absolutely, that was the strength of what they were selling, but I think that's also in that strength, that's the strength of what they were selling, but also ultimately was a great weakness in their argument.
In their legal argument,
they were straight up, all we're doing is providing an antenna for
A
people.
transcoding service.
So that if they don't happen to have the antenna at home, or if they don't have a TV at home, they are still in the area that this free over-the-air broadcasting is being done, so they can consume what is for others a free. So you aren't required to buy a TV. You aren't required to have an antenna to enjoy this free service. I think the DVR capacity, the DVR element,
is what messed it up.
it was a great sales tool, but I think it put a rather large chink in their armor.
Yep. I don't
Maybe if they just backed off of that part and reissued Aereo in some other way.
Aereo is
didn't
dead,
do
though,
that.
because everybody who is buying them, then they have to go through all of that stuff, and the EFF was trying to give them money, but there's just not as much money backing guys that are trying to start it up and do it a modern way than there are people who have been doing it the old way for a long period of time.
What did it do for us? What did it get us?
Well,
I guess what's
what
the
would
benefit?
Aereo get us in the grand scheme of things? It would allow us to
Yeah.
watch over-the-air broadcasts without ever having to set up physical apparatus. You could watch it on a computer, you could watch it on a connected television, and all you need is an IP connection, and then you get closer to the whole disconnected from the rebroadcasting and paying for all of your content concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then really your advertising-based television is truly available, 100% available to anybody in that area. Because it's IP available, right? And it creates it to be on the same stream of where most of the data is going these days. Instead of them being on closed proprietary networks like what the cable system had created, where they control the box at your house, they control the broadcast box, and you get to watch what they want when they want you to watch it. Now you're on a disconnected or a differently connected, controlled by the consumer concept.
Case in point, I think when Time Warner Cable New York, or Time Warner Cable, excuse me, was having their big smackdown throwdown with CBS, and if you were a cable consumer, it was like, sucks to be you don't get CBS. You're not seeing college basketball. You're not seeing all the different things that missed out, unless you're watching over the air. So unless you had you unplugged your cable box and just hooked up an antenna so that your TV was running off of that over the air. Now cable was acting as, this is also, so Aereo, yes, they were acting as a middleman, and that was pissing people off, but ultimately cable and its provider is a middleman that has the ability to act as shutting off the floodgates. Time Warner Cable in New York City, Dallas, I believe, and a few other major markets turned off a over-the-air network for all consumers. Where's the Supreme Court decision on that?
Had you had a terrestrial antenna, would you have been able to still
You would have
get
been able
something?
to, yes.
Okay. All right. That is still the case. As long as that is still the case, then like even this Aereo thing, if you get a terrestrial, it solves itself by having a terrestrial antenna. Basically, it's you're eliminating an industry, a piece of an industry, and you're making it simple. But no one that is actually broadcasting the content is getting anything for this.
No,
So
No.
that's not true.
No, not necessarily. And here is where also, and this is where the argument that's gone against, or the people reacting against the Supreme Court decision, is that this was very much in protecting existing industry, existing modes,
Sure.
at the expense of potentially future. That's why even President
Yes.
Obama cautioned the Supreme Court and said, President Obama was obviously, because hey, he's got pockets with cash too,
Sure.
was cautiously siding with industry, but also saying, don't make this an exhaustive and comprehensive decision, because you don't want to throttle future industries based on current industry need, or don't threaten my revenue now, but in protecting current revenue, you could potentially close the door on future technology. Aereo and anyone who might have built upon the concept of what Aereo is doing is now erasing their dry erase board and going, I got to start over and figure out something new, because this whole
is dead. That vein
new
is
way of-
dead.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the danger in something, and this is the danger in protecting the beast.
I got a
Because
question.
Cable's the beast.
I got a question
Cable
about
is
the
the
beast.
beast.
I got a
But
question.
they have
about
the fattest pipes, and I enjoy their fat pipes. I'm just gonna say.
What is a Korean act of war? I don't understand this.
So there was a movie that was recently created that basically had people going over to Korea and killing Kim Jong Il.
Not just
Inside.
people. Seth Rogen and James Franco.
Seth Rogen and James Franco.
Recognizable people.
Recognizable individuals.
What's that movie where the world ends and they're actually in it? And
This is the end.
oh god, that movie's terrible. But anyway, sorry to ruin your train of thought. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
But they made this movie, and Kim Jong Un basically said it was akin to an act of war. And I wondered if anyone had thoughts on whether or not that was truly an act of war.
Here's where this is my thought just in general on it. I will admit I do have a problem with the kind of how we make comedy of North Korea.
Okay.
You know, be it to the extent of Team America World Police or this movie, because let's be honest, North Korea and the way it runs its government and the way it treats its people is completely abhorrent. The horrible death camps. I'm calling them death camps. I know they're internment camps, but they're camps where they just basically send, not only just, they arrest someone, but they arrest the entire family. Everyone, cousins, daughters, nieces, nephews, whatever. Everyone gets sent to the camp. Basically as a warning to others, don't commit crimes against the people. So to kind of laugh about it and make them like the butt of jokes sometimes makes me a little queasy, because I don't know, I think you're almost like you're soft gloving what otherwise is a pretty awful thing and making it just buffoonery.
Right, because whenever you laugh at it, it makes it easier to digest, and you lose a little bit of the power of what they're doing against their people.
Like, they're just so silly and crazy. They're just crazy. They're awful. It also makes them just like, oh, they're small-minded or whatever. It's like, no, these are very conscious people doing horrible things. That said, I'm excited for the movie. Hypocrisy.
You are abhorrent.
Hypocrisy. Okay? Yeah, I'm abhorrent.
No, it's almost like what did the guys do? The creators of South Park, how they did that puppet movie back in the late '90s.
Thank you for joining the conversation, Team America World Police.
All right, welcome.
Stay with us. Stay with the conversation. Don't walk away. I saw food go by.
It happens, I'm having an pasta plate for breakfast.
Oh, God. Oh, so does that make Germany an asshat?
Does that make Germany?
Well,
Speaking of countries.
I like Angela Merkel, but she's not an asshat, though.
I also like Angela Lansbury, but she's not German.
Weren't we going to say something about the Germans being an asshat for the World Cup?
We have a collective asshat, which was Americans being asshats in Germany. Happy World Cup.
Yes.
Which was
or
the
Germans
American,
being asshats in the American team.
Michelle is not appreciating our failed segue.
Yeah, that was pretty.
We stumbled, and we didn't even stumble into this one.
Join us next week.
We crashed
Better
through a glass
segues.
table.
Oh my God! All right, so
Have you seen the Silly Walk app for your phone? There is a new game for the Silly Walk back from Monty Python.
Nice.
You know, the silliest walk or whatever.
The Ministry of Silly Walks. Yeah.
The Minister of Silly Walks, right? So there's an app that John Cleese has released that is a guy walking around doing the Silly Walk and going through. It's just a scroller, right?
Nice.
And he'll trip on stuff, and his trip is exactly how we just fell into the next topic.
Nice.
You'll have to go and watch it.
And what is our new topic? It is the asshat of the week, which
That's
is
right.
Americans being assets wherever we go. An American exchange student apparently got himself stuck. Where he got himself stuck in something that a lot of young men probably
Get stuck on.
Wah, wah. Got himself stuck into. Was it
And
a Georgia
women.
O'Keeffe? And women.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm saying.
Was
men
it a
because
Georgia
men are-
O'Keeffe
tend to be stupid.
Sculpture?
I don't know, but it was a vagina.
It was a
It
large
was
vagina.
part of a vagina, and a young man apparently decided to climb into it for a photo op because
put
of
his
course,
head
why
inside.
not?
So
And he proceeded to get stuck into a very large vagina.
this is another reason why America is awesome, because only in America would we have a statue that is art of a vagina, and only in America would some young man
Just saying this was not in America.
Germany.
The statue's in Germany.
This just
But
did.
that's next week. That's next
This
week.
just in. Frank's comment is irrelevant.
No,
The
it's a
end.
segue. It's a segue. It's a segue to next week, because next week is my favorite podcast of the year.
The
What's that
America's
one?
awesome.
It is the America
is awesome.
Oh my God, you're right.
We haven't done an America's awesome in a while.
That's
it's
right.
time. It's time.
And in honor of that, my invention this week, to start off that idea, it was originally called, the first one was dubbed Lazy Bones in 1950. Then another one was called Flashmatic,
Flashmatic.
where you had basically a flashlight involved with that one. And it was used to communicate. So it had a beam and a tube, and they had to figure out how to get an interface to communicate with it. Lazy Bones
Laser.
being the first name one.
Are we supposed to guess this?
Actually, the first named one was actually probably called John or Susie or Mary, or in my house it was Michelle. Get up and go change.
A remote control.
Yes.
Right. Oh.
Oh, well, it is a laser because it's got the red light on it, I guess, to communicate with.
Some of them do communicate by
Infrared.
that
Most
red
of them
light.
are on infrared now.
Infrared, right.
Which is
Lazy Bones. I should.
invisible.
Oh man, nice.
Yeah,
Invisible.
yeah, and that was made by Robert Adler, who holds
Nice.
180 patents for electronic devices.
I
Wow.
had a TV that my buddy had in my neighborhood that had a wired remote control.
Yeah.
With a physical wire that went between the television and the couch.
Yeah.
You know, that was an amazing talk show on MTV. I love remote control.
The end.
The end.
The end.
Well, you know what also
you know-
is reaching the end?
This podcast is. Oh, I wanted to tell a
Oh,
quick,
Michelle
quick,
had something. Sorry.
quick snippet. I'm getting a
just
new
saw a
toy
chance to
next
segue.
week. I've got a Nexus 5 on the way, so hopefully that'll work. And they won't release a Nexus 6 in the next 3 months. But I got a pretty
Oh.
good deal on the Nexus 5. So,
Bravo, bravo.
what else do you have to say, Michelle?
I was actually going to segue to your new toy in
Oh,
some
okay.
fashion. So yeah, that's
Perfect.
good to hear.
Yeah,
Excellent.
the Nexus 5 that should probably be here Monday or Tuesday. So I'll let you know how it works out.
Brilliant. Did you get to design it
Yeah.
yourself?
No, you don't do that on Nexus 5.
Oh shoot.
You only do that on the
sorry.
Moto X.
Oh, that's right. The Moto
Yeah.
X. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you have. Yeah, I know.
Nice
I know.
segue.
By the way, that has a fantastic front-facing camera. But in any case, all right.
We have
so
figured that
that's-
out.
That is another thing that we will think about for the coming week. So you don't have to think like me.
You don't have to think like me.
I don't think.
You don't have
Michelle?
to speak American, use the O-desk, think that the movies are an act of war against Korea, or believe anything the Supreme Court says. But we do ask that you think, and you
We
don't have to think
ask
like
that you
me.
think.
Yeah, we
All
do
right,
ask that you
that's it.
think.
Have a good week. We'll see you next time.
Go Team America.
Go
America!